It started the way scandals always do now, not with the headline, not with the press release, but with the file quietly appearing in the darkest corners of the internet at a time when most of London was asleep. Just after 4 in the morning, when palace lights were still off and phones were charging on bedside tables, a folder allegedly surfaced that had nothing to do with war, hacking, or state secrets, and everything to do with tearing apart one of the most protected fairy tales in modern history. The file didn't scream for attention. It didn't need to. Its name alone was enough to make insiders freeze. Project Yacht 2015 rare. According to whispers spreading among cybersecurity circles and so-called palace sources, what sat inside wasn't rumor or tabloid fluff. It was described as a ledger, cold, methodical, dates, movements, payments, a decade of alleged history laid out without emotion, which somehow made it even more terrifying. For years, the phrase yacht girl had floated around comment sections and anonymous forums, always quickly dismissed, always branded misogynistic, always shut down as cruel speculation. But the people now pushing this leak claim this wasn't gossip anymore, it was accounting. And that distinction changes everything. The origin story of the leak itself reads like a thriller. The files are said to come from a former Soho House operations executive fired during an internal purge years ago who allegedly walked away with hard drives as leverage, insurance they call it. And now, according to those watching the fallout, that insurance has been cashed in. Inside the alleged ledger, there are no acting jobs listed, no charity work, no auditions. Instead, the entries reportedly track movements across the Mediterranean, Dubai weekends, island crossings, private jets, each date paired with a name. And the most explosive number attached to the file, 47, isn't framed as a moral judgment but as a literal count. Sponsors, patrons, hosts, allegedly logged like transactions, not relationships. According to those interpreting the document, these weren't boyfriends. They were described as oligarchs, tech elites, foreign royals, men who, the ledger claims, covered flights, wardrobes, accommodations, and access. And this is where the story turns from scandal into something far darker. Because if this narrative is even partially true, it reframes the entire Soho House mythology. The public sees it as a creative sanctuary, a members-only club for artists and thinkers. But the leaked descriptions paint something else entirely. A high-end brokerage where a select group of women were allegedly curated, rotated, and matched with powerful clients. Not parties, placements. One entry reportedly has palace staff reeling the most. August 2015. Istanbul. Official biographies once painted it as a carefree cultural trip. Mosques, desserts, Instagram photos carefully framed to suggest authenticity and independence. But the ledger allegedly tells a different story. It claims a private Gulfstream jet registered to a Russian magnate, a flight manifest that didn't list her as a passenger but as entertainment, a word that echoes long after you read it. Then there are the receipts, alleged payments routed through shell companies, appearance fees, one weekend, $50,000, numbers that don't align with the struggling actress living on cable TV income. And suddenly, the implications explode beyond gossip. Because if someone courting a British prince was allegedly accepting payments from foreign nationals during that same period, it's no longer about reputation, it's about security. Compromise, vulnerability. According to this version of events, she wasn't just having fun, she was exposed. Sources close to Montecito claim Prince Harry himself is said to be spiraling over the images tied to the leak. One photograph in particular allegedly shows a moment so jarring it has been described as soul-crushing. A topless woman on the deck of a super yacht, pouring champagne into the mouth of a man known to intelligence agencies. A man Harry had only ever encountered as a name on a watch list. The story he believed, the humanitarian, the soulmate, the woman who saved him, begins to crack here, because the narrative painted by the leaked files insists that nothing about this was accidental. According to these claims, every chapter was curated, every transformation timed. The Croatia section of the dossier is where things allegedly turned surgical. While the public remembers this period as the summer a whirlwind romance began, the ledger reportedly labels it something else entirely. On rotation. Emails are said to show coordination between Soho House figures and concierge services tied to billionaire playboys. Subject lines allegedly referring to the package. Flight data allegedly aligning perfectly. The Instagram sunsets, the rose glasses, the curated freedom aesthetic, all happening, the leak claims, while she was allegedly stationed on a 300-foot yacht as part of a so-called Tier 1 roster, women vetted, managed, deployed, posting fees logged, payments routed, dates synced, and then comes the message that chills anyone who reads it. Wash off the salt. We switch modes now, allegedly sent while she was still aboard a yacht just days before meeting Prince Harry. According to the leak, this wasn't romance beginning. It was a job ending and another starting. One role clocked out, another clocked in. The transformation, according to the narrative, was instant. Party girl erased. Philanthropist activated. Grainy photos allegedly show two versions of the same woman existing weeks apart. Euphoric, wild, surrounded by bottles, then serene, composed, royal ready. And behind it all, the same name keeps surfacing. Marcus, the handler, the fixer, the man allegedly orchestrating the pivot with military precision. If Croatia was pleasure, the Cannes section is described as pure business. The ledger claims she didn't walk the red carpet because she wasn't meant to be seen. Helicopter arrivals, after party tables, hosting fees. A night vision image allegedly shows her barefoot at 4 a.m, stepping off a tender boat, champagne in hand, assisted by a man identified by intelligence sources as deeply connected to organized crime. And yet, just weeks later, she would be introduced to the British royal family. According to the dossier, the Cannes play failed, no movie deal, no leap to Hollywood stardom. And that's when Plan B allegedly activated. London. Soho House. Rebranding. What follows next, according to the leak, isn't romance, it's a reset, digital scrubbing, archive suppression, social media cleanup, a 3-week operation allegedly designed to erase one identity and install another. The ledger doesn't describe dates, it describes protocols. And the night she supposedly met Prince Harry, not labeled as a date at all. According to the files, it was a client acquisition meeting, private booth, no staff, 2 hours sealed, bar tab charged to marketing. By the time the London phase allegedly ended, the story the world believed had already hardened into a fairy tale. A modest actress, a blind date, a prince finally finding peace. But the files claim London wasn't the beginning, it was the final polish. The real containment happened in Toronto. According to the ledger, the house on Yarmouth Road, the one photographed endlessly as a cozy love nest, wasn't simply a rental. It's described as an annex, a controlled space, a soft-walled holding zone designed to manage a high-value relationship. The rent, the leak alleges, didn't come entirely from her television salary. Part of it was allegedly subsidized through shell channels tied back to the same network that had allegedly handled her rotations years earlier. If that's true, then the most intimate chapters of their early relationship weren't private at all. They were supervised. The logs allegedly tracked Prince Harry's visits with unnerving detail. Days before his arrival, the house would undergo what reads like a theatrical reset. Deep cleaning, wardrobe swaps, catering changes, floral staging, the party remnants gone, the aesthetic adjusted, every trace of another life erased. According to this narrative, Harry didn't walk into reality, he walked onto a set designed specifically for him. And while he was flying back to London, believing he was falling deeper in love, the ledger suggests the rotation never fully stopped. One entry from November 2016 is described by those reviewing the leak as stomach-turning. That was the same night Harry issued his unprecedented public statement, condemning the media and defending the woman he loved. He was risking everything, reputation, tradition, family goodwill, to shield her. Yet the logs allegedly claim that very same night, a VIP guest signed into the Toronto residence late in the evening and didn't leave until morning. No press, no photos, just an entry, timestamps, names redacted. And then there's the image that allegedly accompanies it, a kitchen selfie, a borrowed shirt, a fridge magnet Harry had given her. Metadata allegedly reading, keeping options open. If this version of events is even partially accurate, it suggests something devastating, that while Harry believed he was choosing forever, she was still hedging. Not out of fear, out of strategy. As the relationship moved forward, the ledger paints Marcus Anderson not as a background friend, but as an active director. Texts allegedly show him coaching behavior before Harry's visits, what to wear, what not to mention, what version of herself to present. The instructions weren't affectionate, they were operational. Be the refuge. Make him feel safe, not loved. safe. Then came Jamaica. Publicly, it was a romantic milestone, the first big social test, introducing her to Harry's inner circle. Privately, the leak claims it was something closer to reconnaissance. The dossier allegedly includes a document titled like a briefing, names, loyalty ratings, threat assessments, friends labeled as risks, allies categorized by influence. Witness accounts included in the files claim her behavior wasn't insecurity, it was isolation, pulling him away mid-conversation, interrupting private talks, keeping physical contact constant. According to this framing, it wasn't jealousy, it was containment. The most disturbing claim from that trip comes from a balcony photo allegedly taken by someone inside the same network. She's not with Harry, she's on the phone, angry, animated, and the call log, the leak says, matches a conversation with Marcus. The transcript attributed to that call is explosive. It allegedly includes instructions to deploy the most powerful weapon available, accusations that would instantly poison Harry against anyone questioning her past. If true, that moment reframes everything that followed, because from then on, concern became betrayal, questions became attacks, and anyone who warned Harry was no longer protecting him, they were enemies. By the time the wedding arrived, the ledger suggests the operation had succeeded. She wasn't just integrated, she was untouchable. But the files insist the story doesn't end there. Amsterdam, 2018. Pregnant. A duchess, officially a working royal, publicly attending a Soho house opening as a private guest. Yet the logs describe something else entirely. Strategy sessions, private suites, meetings Harry wasn't invited to. Executives, branding consultants, streaming figures. According to this narrative, while Harry was socializing, she was negotiating. There are claims of encrypted earpieces, live intelligence feeds, real-time coaching, names whispered into her ear, net worths calculated, potential extracted. The language used in the ledger is cold, mining, not mingling. Even more brutal is how Prince Harry himself is described in that section. Not as a husband, not as a partner, but as the asset. Someone to keep occupied, kept comfortable, kept distracted while deals were shaped around him. The alleged transcript of a private conversation from that weekend cuts especially deep. It portrays a woman already planning an exit, not from the marriage, but from the monarchy, talking about platforms, control, revenue streams that couldn't be touched by the palace. This was 2018. 2 years before the public break, long before interviews, long before accusations. According to the files, the tiara didn't end the hustle. It upgraded it, and then comes the cleanup. The ledger claims that after the engagement, a coordinated purge was launched. Photos buried, servers wiped, NDAs signed, payments issued, 12 people allegedly silenced. Not out of malice, out of necessity. Because too many loose ends could collapse everything. But the most chilling detail isn't what was erased, it's what wasn't. The files insist a master archive still exists. OneDrive. Encrypted, held back as leverage, insurance against betrayal, a reminder that loyalty runs both ways. And that's where the story circles back to now, because if the final entries are to be believed, the endgame has already started. Shell companies, asset separation, intellectual property shifted quietly out of reach, a narrative drafted for the public not as abandonment, but as rescue. The ledger doesn't predict love failing, it predicts a contract concluding. And somewhere in Montecito, according to those pushing this leak, a prince is realizing too late that he didn't marry a rebel who escaped the system. He married someone who mastered it, someone who mastered it, someone who mastered it, someone who